Hi, my name is Matt Izzo, and I've lost 75 pounds. And as you can see from the photo, this has been quite a change for me and my life. But my story is more than a story about fat loss. I overcame a 25-year struggle with obesity and depression to not only lose weight, but I transformed myself into a healthy person mentally and emotionally, and into an athlete who's now competing in Ironman races. My story starts when I was a kid, and I was maybe 8 or 10 years old, and I started to gain weight, and it was really painful for me being the fat kid in class. And I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I felt. I was excluded by the other kids. I was made fun of by the other kids for being fat. And this became a part of my identity that I desperately wanted to shed. So in my teenage years, I had my first weight loss attempt. I lost about 75 pounds. I don't exactly know how I did it. I didn't do it through the most healthy means. It was mostly through doing calisthenics in my room, but somehow I lost the weight. It obviously didn't stick because I didn't change my lifestyle and I just reverted back to old habits. So the weight came back on. I carried it through college and then into my first job, which was at a debt collection law firm, and that didn't help me with my mental state. I was surrounded by a lot of low energy people, and my depression and obesity carried on. In my mid-20s, I found the motivation to lose the weight again. I educated myself about fitness and nutrition, and I did it really intelligently. And I lost the weight. I got down to 160. I was 25 years old. I was in great shape. For the first time in my life, I felt great, but it didn't stick. I suffered an injury. I had some emotional trauma, and within 6 months or a year, I had gained most of the weight back. And then I struggled for a long time. I began to drift through life. I met Courtney in 2010, and she was great, but I kind of gave up on life after I met her. It felt like I had achieved all my goals. I had a great girl. I lived in a great apartment where I wanted to live. And, I worked at a job. I had enough money. So I started drifting through life. And for 8 years, I drank too much. I ate unhealthy foods. I started to go out a lot. I gained the weight. My mental state was deteriorating as this went on, but I didn't care. I thought I was having fun, but deep down I wasn't, and I was struggling. And this culminated on Labor Day weekend, 2016. I drank a lot for 4 days in a row. I went really hard, and I knew that I couldn't carry on like this. I couldn't sleep the night of Labor Day, and I knew I had to make some changes. I knew I had to at least take a weekend off from drinking. So I challenged myself to take a weekend off from drinking. Later that week, I couldn't sleep again. It was early in the morning, and I challenged myself to running a mile. And it was dark. It was before the sun came up. I was on the trail behind my apartment, and somehow I ran that mile. And I felt some mixed emotions after I did it. Part of me was euphoric for meeting the challenge, for proving to myself that I could do this, even though I wasn't sure that I could do it. But another part of me felt ashamed because it did not go well, and I was in terrible shape. It should have been easier for me to run a mile. I knew that. I knew that I let myself go too far. So I walked back into the house that day, and I committed myself to losing the fat. And this picture of me is from a few days after I made a decision to lose the weight. It's the first time in my 30s. I think I'm smiling genuinely. My energy was increased. I felt better for just even starting this, for making the commitment to improve my life. So I stuck with it. I every day worked toward my weight loss goal. I tracked and logged my food. I walked a lot. I did high intensity interval training. I started going to the gym. I started lifting weights. May of 2017, I stepped on the scale and I reached my goal. It read 160. I felt great and I kept going. I realized that if I kept doing the same sort of things that I had been doing, I wouldn't get fat again. If I kept an eye on what I was doing, kept monitoring my food intake, kept exercising, kept weighing myself, then I wouldn't get fat again. And my plan worked. I kept the weight off for 2017, 2018, and 2019. And then in 2019, I got featured by Men's Health magazine. I got out of my comfort zone, and I put a before and after picture on Reddit. And a writer for Men's Health magazine saw it, and he featured me in the magazine, and that to me changed things because I realized that thousands of people would find inspiration in my story. So I started to put myself out there, even though it was hard at first. I still had a lot of shame about what I used to be, and I carried that with me. But the more I shared my story, the better I felt about it. And then later on in 2019, I did my first triathlon. I didn't have any background with swimming, biking, or running, but I felt the need to challenge myself. So I signed up for a race. It featured an ocean swim, an 18.5-mile bike ride, and a 5-mile run, most of which was on the sand. Doing this race terrified me, and even just lining up at the starting line of this race was one of the biggest victories of my life because it was way out of my comfort zone. So I started the race. I somehow finished the race. I didn't do very well, but I loved it. So I did another triathlon later that year. I ran a half marathon, and then I challenged myself to do an Ironman 70.3. I didn't think I could do a race of that distance, but I wanted to give it a try. So I trained for it all winter into the spring of 2020. Obviously, the pandemic happened. Everything got closed. The race got postponed to September. I trained for it all year. I kept going. The race ended up getting canceled and pushed off to 2021. So I wanted to still accomplish something big that year, and I challenged myself to run a marathon. So I signed up for the Harrisburg Marathon. I trained for 10 weeks. I completed a marathon, which was an amazing achievement for me at this time because even 2 years earlier, I would have told you it was impossible for me to run further than 5 miles. And here I was running 26.2 miles. And I kept training for the Ironman 70.3 into 2021. In 2021, I completed 11 races, a bunch of triathlons, a bunch of half marathons, some other road races. I did some open water swims, and I completed the Ironman 70.3. I smashed my goal time. I did it in 5 hours and 48 minutes. It's still probably my greatest athletic achievement to date. And now I've challenged myself to do a full distance Ironman. So I'm signed up for Ironman Florida on November the 5th, 2022, and I'm training for that every day. I love it. I love setting goals. I love putting myself out there, making things that are hard to do, right? This is how I grow, and this is how I keep going forward and keep from getting stagnant again and keep from drifting. It's by setting goals and by, doing things that I think are hard. And this is what I've learned really from my journey. It's that you can't ever stop. There's no end. If you achieve a goal, that's great. Enjoy it for a couple days at most, and then set another goal and start working towards it. And it doesn't even need to be a physical goal, right? You have to devote yourself to something. You have to have a purpose, and that's going to be what keeps you going. That's what keeps me going. So if you're out there, if you're struggling with your weight, if this has been a problem that you've had to deal with for a long time, if you don't think you can overcome it and you don't think it's possible for you to live, a healthy lifestyle in a fit body, I've been there. I didn't think it was possible for me for a long time, but I did it. I proved it was possible. I now devote my life to helping other people who are like me and, who struggle with some of the things that I've overcome. So I put out as much as I can about it. I coach people and I help them make the same sort of transformations that I have, not just physical, but mental and emotional, right? A holistic transformation. When they say it's more than a diet, it's a lifestyle change, that's the truth. It means evolving your entire being, and once you evolve your being, once you change your lifestyle, it becomes effortless to maintain. And that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I'm teaching other people to do.